Archive British Steam series of videos is a collection of rare original cine footage of working steam locomotives on British railways in the 1950s and 1960s. The shots cover most areas of Britain and many different types of locomotives, and in most cases follow a chronological order rather than any pattern of location or classes of locomotives. We begin Volume 2 at Rugby in 1959 with Princess Coronation classes number 46228 Duchess of Rutland and 46241 City of Edinburgh, both on the downside of the station. Both of these members of the class were originally streamlined. Upside of the station, another former streamlined member of the class heads the southbound Royal Scot, which had originated in Glasgow. The Midlander, on the other hand, as the name suggests, had come from the Midlands. It's seen here behind a Black 5 and a Jubilee. Another named train, this time the Merseyside Express, which had originated in Liverpool. Its engine is Princess Royal Class number 46207, Princess Arthur of Connaught. Less romantic perhaps, but equally important to the smooth running of the railway, was this 060 shunting engine. Number 58199 was a 1917 rebuild of an original Johnson Midland design of 1875. Brief shot of former LNER B1 class number 61156 at Rugby, before another named train on the up line. This is the Caledonian. The engine, Duchess of Abercorn, was one of the class built without streamlining. Royal Scot number 46106 was experimentally fitted with these BR standard type smoke deflectors. It's seen here on another Up Express. Finally at Rugby, another Princess Coronation. This time it's number 46225, Duchess of Gloucester. Now we move to Banbury. This is King class number 6027, King Richard I, on an Up Express. The King was a collet design of 1927 and had a tractive effort of over 40,000 pounds. Some power for a 460. This 260 of the 4300 class, which was first introduced in 1911, had a tractive effort of 25,670 pounds. The first two engines at Banbury were former GWR locomotives. 92033 was built in the 1950s and was of British Railways design. Ostensibly a freight locomotive, the 9Fs were soon found to be excellent for passenger work too. Banbury Station had been rebuilt in 1958. This is a former GWR Hall locomotive. Here's another King, this time number 6012, King Edward VI, on a Down Express. The 9F now leaves Banbury with a train which will join the former Great Central Railway south of Woodford House. This link closed in 1966, as did most of the Great Central itself. Another mogul. And one of the heavy 282 tank engines of the 72 class. "75051 was a 460 Class 4 mixed traffic engine. Introduced in 1951, it was designed at Brighton. Yet another mogul, number 6378, departs south with this short freight train. Double-headed special creeps into Banbury from the south. The pilot engine is ex-Southern Railway's T9 class number 30120, which had reverted back to its original number 120. The train engine is a U-Class 260 locomotive, this particular one having been rebuilt from a Class K 264 tank engine. The train was heading for the Great Central Line. This special, seen from the train window, was also bound for the Great Central. This King, number 6014, had been the subject of an experimental streamlining back in the 1930s. It retained its unusual cab right to the end. Caldecott Castle was one of the first batch of castles built in 1923. The design proved so successful that castles were produced until 1950. This Stanier 460 Black 5 is towing a dead tank engine. Still in the Banbury area, this is the former Ironstone Railway at Roxton. The engine Sir Thomas has been preserved. From the sidings at Banbury, where the system joined the main line, to Roxton, the line was all double-tracked. There were two engine sheds. This one was situated at Banbury. There was also a shed at the Roxton end of the system. This was still extant in 1995. The system had its own signal boxes and was fully independent of British Railways as a working unit. The maximum output from Roxton quarries was achieved in 1956. From then on, the system was in steady decline. However, the system didn't close until 1968. By the time the system closed, steam traction had given way to diesels. Still on the former Great Western Railway, about 30 miles south of Banbury, is Oxford. This is a 460 Hall class locomotive. 259 of these locomotives were built, plus another 71 modified versions. Class 61, Class 262 tank engines were a development of the 51s and had a higher boiler pressure. The diminutive 1400 class 042 tank engines could be found all over the former Great Western lines during the 1950s and 1960s. In 1952, one was used in the filming of the Ealing comedy The Titfield Thunderbolt. Castle number 7007 was named Great Western and was one of the members of the class built after World War II. Oxford had a fine array of semaphore signals at this time. Here's another one of the heavy 282 tank engines. And another 262 tank. Southern region locomotives were fairly common at Oxford. They worked cross-country expresses from the south coast and were exchanged to Western engines to continue their journeys north. 30857 was a Lord Nelson 460 locomotive. More common on these services were the bullied Light Pacifics. 34047 was a West Country class rebuild. Originally, all of the class, both West Country and Battle of Britain, were built with air-smooth casing and Bulleid's unique chain-driven valve gear. .34051, seen here on Winston Churchill's funeral train, is in unrebuilt form. Another Great Western Hall. And Battle of Britain class number 34071, 601 Squadron, in rebuilt form. 34047 again. Another unrebuilt loco. Number 34041 was named Wilton. All the West Countries were named after towns and villages in the west of England. It could be argued, however, that numbers 1, 2 and 92 were named after cities. .30857, Lord Howe, is now seen ready to take a train back to the southern region. These 1926 designed locomotives were never a great success, and only 16 were ever built. West Country number 34047 was named Callington, after the small town at the end of a branch line from Beer Alston. Today, the branch terminates at Gunnisley. This is an 060 Q1 of 1942 design. Its unusual shape is not just a quirk of the eccentricities of its designer Oliver Bullitt. It was deliberately constructed for practical use rather than having any cosmetic design. And Wilton again. Morlace Castle contrasts nicely with Wilton as she pulls out of the station. Although of totally different design, both these locomotives conceal their valve gear from view. This is unrebuilt Battle of Britain class number 34075, 264 Squadron. .3851 was a 1938 Collet version of a former Churchwood 280 freight locomotive design. The Q1 again. .6927 Lilford Hall was one of the 1928 modified halls, with higher pitched boiler and modified footplating. The famous Gresley Pacific, the Flying Scotsman, was repainted in original LNER apple green livery in the 1960s and used on many special trains. It reverted back to its old number of 4472. A3s were introduced in 1927, and many outlived later LNER Pacific designs. Such was their reliability. Today, in 1995, Flying Scotsman has been repainted in green livery and carries its BR number 60103. One of the most successful and popular steam locomotives in Britain were the 1954-built BR Standard Class 9. Many of these locomotives, however, saw less than 10 years active service. 34103 was named Calstock and was another of the class to remain in its original bullet form. Boscastle, however, was rebuilt and has been one of the lucky survivors, being now based at Loughborough. Another one of the post-war built castles was number 7005, Sir Edward Elgar. As was Thornbury Castle, number 7027. Sounding a bit like a castle, but not quite, Boscastle again. Brief glimpse of a rare visitor to Oxford, former LNER K3 number 61834, and Calstock again. All four regions were represented at Oxford this day. This is former LMS Black 5 number 44830. And finally at Oxford, number 7911, Lady Margaret Hall. We moved to Gloucester, where both Western and Midland region locomotives could be seen in abundance. Firstly, a former GWR 042 tank engine of the 1400 class. This is unrebuilt former LMS Patriot class engine number 45519, Lady Godiva. These LMS 460s worked many of the cross-country passenger services from the southwest to the northeast of England. More shots of the quaint 1400 class locomotives. Many of these engines found themselves replaced by DMUs in later years. three-cylinder Jubilee class number 45674, Hardy, was also a regular performer on the cross-country trains. And this is Class 45 number 4564, a 262 tank engine design which dates back to 1906. In 1924, Collett used the 1907 Saint design to produce the first of the halls, number 4900. However, unlike the rest of the class, which were all named after famous halls, it was called St. Martin. The smallest of the ex-Great Western Railway's 460s to see BR service were the Manors. This is Cookham Manor and it's been preserved. The nameplate of Castle Class number 5017. St. Martin differed from all the other halls, being some 3 tons lighter in weight. It's seen here ready to back onto its special enthusiasts train. From behind St. Martin we pass the famous city of Truro. The city of Truro is reputed to have been the very first locomotive to exceed 100 miles per hour. Here it is at Swindon. Usk Castle, also at Swindon. A number of Britannias were allocated to the western region from New. Number 70020 Mercury was one such locomotive and was shedded at Old Oak Common. .6369 was one of the 4300 class moguls, built to the original Churchwood design of 1911. And 6961 Stedham Hall was a 1944 modified hall. It was a Hawksworth development of the original class and had a larger superheater. 1021 County of Montgomery was a pure Hawksworth design of 1945. Unfortunately, not the successful design it was hoped to be. This is a BR standard 282 locomotive and a 280 wartime built austerity. Our final look at Swindon sees 2 of the Western region's unique pannier tanks. The Great Western Railway was renowned for being different, and surely there can't be another design in the world quite like this. Radstock on the former Somerset and Dorset line. Until this line closed in the mid-1960s, a summer Saturday would produce a steady stream of holiday trains to and from the south coast. A BR Standard Class 4 pilots 9F number 92001 on a southbound express train, the famous Hines Express. Another BR Standard acting as pilot. This time it's to unrebuilt West Country class number 34043, Coombe Martin. The last steam locomotive ever built by British Railways back in 1960 was 92220, Evening Star. It too has been preserved. These 2807Fs were introduced in 1914 by Fowler and were specifically built for the Somerset and Dorset. Two have survived, this one and 53808. Radstock Station, together with all the rest of the Somerset and Dorset, became a victim of the beaching cuts, and all of this is now just a memory. Another S&D 7F, number 53807. And yet another, this time being piloted by a Standard Class 4. Rebuilt West Country class number 34040, Crewkerne, is also piloted by a BR Standard locomotive. 92245 again. And Coombe Martin also returns from the south coast, heading for Bath. (6930) Aldersey Hall at Bristol. Now we move north to a different line and a different region. This is Nottingham Victoria, and this 28004 class number 63644 is one of the 1944 rebuilds. (67779) was a Thompson L1264 tank with a reduced cylinder diameter, and another 04. One of the earlier XROD 04s, introduced in 1917. A former LMS, Jubilee, Hyderabad. These engines were introduced in 1934. And one of the 01280s rebuilt by Thompson in 1944 with Volshirt's valve gear. 44810 and 73091 are seen leaving Birmingham New Street. The other mainline station in Birmingham was Snow Hill. From the early 1970s until the late 80s, it became a car park. However, it's been reopened and in 1995 regained a through train service. Back in the early 1960s, King Class number 6026 King John departs with the Down Express. This is 7207, a 282 tank engine. Back to Birmingham New Street, and this is Jubilee number 45608, which was named Gibraltar. Stafford was a paradise for steam enthusiasts, with main lines merging from Manchester, Crewe, Nuneaton and Birmingham. This is Britannia number 70032, Tennyson. And this is City of Bristol. Royal Scot number 46129 on the up line. All members of this class were rebuilt between 1943 and 1955, 46129 being done in September 1944. City of Coventry was one of the Princess Coronation class to end its days wearing red livery. Britannia number 70019, Lightning, was formerly a Great Western Region engine. Duchess of Montrose was one of the Scottish-based coronations. It was also one of the first to be withdrawn. Towards the end of their lives, passenger locomotives became relegated to much more mundane duties. This is Dorchester Castle at Snow Hill. Having been transferred from the Western region, we now see Mercury at Birmingham New Street Station. Also at New Street, this is one of the Fowler 264 tank locomotives, introduced in 1933. Another Coronation Class 462 locomotive. City of St Albans was one which did not receive the final red livery. Stafford once more, and a Ginty 060 tank engine, number 47590. Over 400 of these locomotives were built, but they were largely displaced when the diesel shunter was introduced. The city of Birmingham can now be found in the Birmingham Science Museum. No such fate befell Princess Marie Louise, however. Like most of her class, she met the cutter's torch in the mid-1960s. Snow Hill once more, and this is former LMS 8F 280, number 48460. Some of these locomotives survived until the end of BR steam in 1968. Camp Hill in Birmingham. The 9F is assisted in the rear by Fowler 4F 060, number 43963. In our constant search for archive cinefilms, we've seldom come across members of the BR standard clan class. Here is one exception. For most of their lives they ventured no further south than northern England, but 72008 Clan MacLeod is seen here on a special train near Camp Hill. It was later coupled up to the last hall, number 7929. It is seen here at Bordsley. Stanier Black 5, number 44963, is seen here as it leaves Birmingham New Street. And now a rare glimpse inside the Burton-on-Trent Brewery Railway. Both locomotives and rolling stock were generally antiquated, even when these shots were taken back in the 1960s. The occasion was an RCTS visit to the system. It was first opened in 1862, and for the first year used only horses as traction. Gradually, these gave way to steam locomotives. Engine number 9 has been preserved by the Bass Charrington Museum. At its peak, it had over 12 miles of track, handled over 1,000 wagons a day, and linked 4 separate premises. The brewery railway had its own drivers, firemen, cleaners, shunters and signalmen. Sadly, in the late 1960s, a decision was made to change over to road transport, and the entire system was closed.
Not doing very well. Oh, good. No, you don't get much use.
.42593 was a Stania 2-cylinder Class 4 264 tank engine. It's seen here at Birmingham New Street. Also at Birmingham New Street we see Duchess of Sutherland, another of the Princess Coronation class to survive. It's currently at Bressingham. Ex-War Department austerity 280s could be found all over the network. This is 90315, a Pontypool road engine heading south through Birmingham Snow Hill. Stechford, and a Britannia which spent all its life on the London Midland region. Number 70033, Charles Dickens. .44517 was one of nearly 600 0604Fs introduced in 1924, a development of the former Midland Railways design. Another shot of City of St Albans. Still at Stechford, this is Princess Royal Class 462 locomotive number 46208, Princess Helena Victoria. On Volume 1 we saw City of Nottingham in shining condition on a special train. This is how she looked most of the time. The last two Coronation-class locomotives were Ivat developments of the Stanier design and were fitted with roller bearings, electric lighting and other detail alterations. They were numbered 46256 and 46257. Crewe was a haven for Princess Coronations. This one was called City of London and was reputedly one of the best of the class. Yet another Princess Coronation. A rebuilt Patriot and a Black 5 back into the station to couple up to an express. As does this unrebuilt Patriot, one of the class members never to carry a name, number 45547. Snow Hill and King William IV departs with the down train. With an up train is Stanway Hall. Back to Nottingham Victoria and another 04, this time number 63589. A brace of ex-LNER engines are seen behind Ivat Class 4 260, number 43155. 76087 was one of the 260 standard Class 4s, introduced in 1953 and designed at Doncaster. 6424 was a pannier tank and was a collet design introduced in 1932. It's seen here at Dudley. Also at Dudley is 8F number 48747. Ivat Class 2 260s, numbers 46429 and 46522, topped and tailed this special train on the Harborne branch in Birmingham. The branch was already closed to passengers at this time, and soon after these shots were taken, it was closed completely. end Volume 2 at Crewe Station with a final look at two of the most majestic classes of Pacific locomotives ever to run in this country. Firstly, the Princess Coronation. And lastly, the Princess Royal, both designed by Sir William A. Stanier.